What's happening, bonsai friends? I'm Darren, and in this video I'm going to be repotting this imported Japanese maple bonsai. I've also got an update on the Fuji Cherry wedge cut experiment that I did last year. When I took ownership of this tree in the spring of 2019, the akadama that it's currently in had already broken down and it was badly due for a repot. Unfortunately though, it was in full leaf and repotting wasn't possible at that time. I happened to go to the greenhouse and noticed that we were in this state, so we've caught it at just about the right time. So the tree isn't tied into the pot, but let's just see how firmly, oh, it's not firmly wedged in at all. We can take it out very easily. And we do have some root growth. Okay. So this tree has already got a shallow root system, but even so I'm going to start by pulling off this top layer just to see what we've got near the surface in terms of thicker roots. There's very little in the way of friable soil so far. It's all pretty much mush, broken down. We had a complete loss of drainage through the soil, otherwise known as percolation. There we go, we found there's a structural root here. There we go. We don't have to come down any further from the top now. We've identified the locations of those structural roots and we've started to get into some finer feeder roots. And down underneath, again I'm going to work some of this soil out. Trying to maintain a flat base. It was already flat and at the angle we wanted it, so I'm just trying to take off the same layer, the same thickness throughout. Cut back some of these roots. And the action with the chopstick is quite gentle. I'm not tearing through any roots here. Trying to tease them out so I can see what we're working with. I've got as far underneath to know that A, there's no friable soil down here, and B, there's not a fat lot of root either. I started hitting some finer roots, so I'm going to stop at the bottom. I'm going to come around the sides and release some of these circling roots. Then I'll make a decision about whether I'm actually going to completely bare root this one, get rid of all that mush and start again from fresh. That's a distinct possibility. So just very carefully tease out the roots around the sides here. I'm going in between these structural roots to start with, because we do have some fine feeder roots coming from the ends of them. We want to maintain them wherever possible. Don't want to be ripping through with the chopstick. Any cuts that we make, I'd rather were conscious, educated cuts rather than just coming in with the chopstick and yanking whatever's in my way. There's one or two thicker circling roots here just near the surface attached to this piece. I don't want to rip that piece off. Try and tease the root out a little bit so that we can see where it's heading off to. Again, we're hitting some circling roots in this area. I got the tree out from the greenhouse and then put it by the back door of the workshop. Took the dog out and it started raining, so I've been left with this absolute mud bath. But I simply can't wait any longer to repot this tree. If I only repot one tree this year, it has to be this one. So we're doing it now. I'm going to need to clean the camera and everything by the time I finish this. I've taken it back a little bit further than I anticipated. Underneath, the soil is completely broken down. There's not a fat lot of root underneath here, so there's no actual benefit to maintaining any kind of core of untouched roots down there. So I am going to make the commitment to completely bare rooting, and we'll get this set up for success. Alright, let's take it outside now and I'll give it a good wash. There's still a bit of daylight, so as long as I'm quick, I'll still be able to see what I'm doing. It was at this point that he realised that getting a white work surface for practising bonsai would be a bad idea. With the roots nice and clean, we can get a really good look at what's going on. I've got a nice nabari in the making. We've got a bit of circling, but nothing major, no really big, thick, gnarly pieces going round and round. Okay, let's come underneath. We've got a couple of stubs under here. Let's clean those up. Okay, take that lump out. Knob cutters would be the better tool for this. Where's that coming from? Okay. But these branch cutters are what I use for roots. So these will do the job. So we're directly under the trunk at the moment, so anything that's here isn't really necessary. Pruning back any of this stuff is just going to help to direct the tree's energy into the nabari. That wasn't very clean cut. There we go, that's better. Much better. Always striving for clean cuts. Okay, that's looking good underneath. I could remove more if I wanted to, but I don't want to, simply because I don't need to. And also, if we leave some of those finer pieces that are under there, it's going to help the health of the tree, which wasn't amazing last year. And maybe we'll be able to do a bit of work in the nabari just to continue to improve that and drive that forward. So I'm really not thrilled with these structural roots here and here that have been butted up to the edge of the pot. For now I'm going to leave those because I've spotted a couple of issues over here. So we've got 1, 2, 3 nice surface roots. Underneath we've got a couple of pieces down here. So we've removed that piece there. That's going to improve that area. We've also got a fork here. I don't know how well you can see, but there's a root, one root on top of the other. So I'm going to come underneath again. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so in this area we've just got the surface roots now instead of roots on top of each other. Okay, I'm going to prune these back. I need to leave something there, I think. I'm not confident in cutting back to nothing, so hopefully by pruning these roots we may stimulate some roots to come from the side. I don't know if we will. Again, just going to prune back these weird, awkward roots just a little. This one does have something to cut back to, but at this stage I'll just be happy to transition any strength back to that before I make the cut. And then in this area we've got some roots underneath coming off at weird angles, and then where we're circling a bit, cut back there. Where's that one coming from? So underneath I can come back to a side root. This thicker root is a bit low really. Cut some of these roots off that are sideways. Prune back some of these strong bits, and again hope to transition. This big long piece can come out. It's off at all sorts of weird angles. Those roots are coming from underneath and going sideways. I'm only going to cut cut back the sideways bits for this root pruning, so that we're pointing that way. We're still coming from underneath, which isn't ideal, but at least we're no longer splaying out too far to the sides. There's a root going downwards there. Let's take that off completely. So this root here, it's coming off. It's coming off to the side there, but I don't really want to prune any material off this one. I'd like it to try and pick up some of the strength from some of the thicker areas, catch up with them. Okay, so that's the extent of the root pruning. Don't get me wrong, I'm very aware that there's quite a few flaws in the base of this tree, but at this stage, with the health not being amazing with this tree, that's as far as I'm going to take it. I want to make some incremental improvements rather than coming all in and coming all guns blazing and then hope for the best. I think making incremental improvements gives me the confidence that it's going to be okay while progressively moving the tree forward. I think that's more my style, is to perhaps play it a little conservatively. I don't know, you might disagree whether I've played it conservatively. In terms of pot choice, I'm going to put it back into this training container. I'm going to position it in such a way that some of these thicker roots have a bit more room to grow and a bit more room to manoeuvre, so we don't continue to perpetuate this lateral spread from the cut ends. And then the next time I repot, we'll hopefully be able to address these spreading roots a bit better. Right, let's get some tie down sorted. Reuse the old mesh. It's a tad long. This time I'm going to use 2 pieces and it'll be a lot simpler. First I'll just get my corners. Oops. Get my corners set up. One in, and then the second one in. Get those bedded down nicely. Just check we're not crossed over. Nope. No, we're not crossing, so let's get the aeration layer in. And a single layer of my tume sized, or shohin, of the small grade, or shohin, or tume, whatever you want to call it, grade akadama. And then I want to make a nice mound in the centre. I don't want to come too deep this time. Do need to make sure that we've got enough there to to fill in any spaces underneath the trunk though. Get this wire into position first. It's going to be a bit tricky, but I'm going to have to thread it through there. Tease it underneath any surface roots. Through there, under this area, and the one that we're going to be joining to is here. Let's have a look, where are we? So this guy is going to come underneath here, underneath these roots, so we don't want to damage anything. Bit fiddly this, not going to lie. That fine root out of the way, and then that can stay there. And then on the other side, similar strategy. I'm going to come under the, as best as I can, weave it in and out of these roots. That's the root that I'm going to tie to. It's beneath the level of the nabari. And again, this one, tease this one into position on the other side of it. That one needs to come up here. So we can't just stand it there for a sec, that's good. Now that we've got our tie downs in the right position, I'm just going to carefully tuck any wayward roots. Tuck them down, try and keep them in the pot. It's going to make life difficult if we have to tuck them in afterwards. Right, how are the roots looking? Right, okay, good. Right, now I want to try and make sure that there's a bit of space for these thicker surface roots. Give them a bit of room to breathe, and hopefully the pruning we've done will hopefully stimulate some adventitious roots further back. Maybe, maybe not, we'll see. So position the trunk carefully to avoid butting up too much. And once we're in, that looks good. We've got a gap of space, gap of space, gap of space. Okay, so now let's just bed that down. Okay, so it's a little bit wobbly, but we're generally okay. Shorten these wires a touch. There, right, this root now can go back to where it wants to be. And we can just tighten down. To this root over here, which is below the soil line. And this side, a little bit more awkward. Manoeuvre that root, manoeuvre that wire just a little bit. Oh, what have we got here? Root attached to the wire. Very careful here. So it's not the ideal location to be tying to. Underneath this bundle of roots is a thicker one that we've come across. These roots are hampering the tie down, so we're going to have to be really careful there. Just like that. Shorten those. Okay, so I'm noting the position of the roots as good as my memory will allow, and I'm going to fill just working the soil down underneath that trunk, just roughly at first. I want to say roughly, I don't mean ramming it in there like I'm trying to kill it. Roughly as in approximately. Just trying to get the soil underneath those thick structural roots coming in from the sides. Using a thicker chopstick at the moment just to get as much soil in place as quickly as possible. It's not going to be perfect at this moment. Tease some soil among those roots there, and then with my really fine one, my really fine chopstick, now we're just really working soil into the hollows underneath that trunk. So, there we go, there's a hollow, nice empty section, so let's get that akadama packed into there. Trying to remember where the roots are. Here we go. So get right under the trunk here. Same here. Just feel it gradually filling up. That was a good one. Pull back some of this soil to get the nabari out. And some of these stragglers, just cut them back. If they're pointing directly upwards, we don't need them anyway. Okay, so any of these bits of root here, they're going to be they'll be protected by the surface dressing. And now we come with the moss top dressing. That's going to keep everything nice and healthy near the surface. Keep any of those exposed surface roots moist. And just a light dusting. I can still see the soil through the moss. I'm not, I don't layer it on. I use Ryan Neal's approach to top dressing. Check it out on Mirai or Mirai's YouTube channel, Mirai Live. Highly recommended. I'm not sponsored, by the way. I've been a fully paying member for more than a year now, I guess. Okay, there she is. I'll nip outside, water it in. A few people have been asking for updates on the Kojo no Mai Fuji Cherry that I did a wedge cut experiment on ahead of doing a trunk chop. So I thought I'd just do a quick update. As you can see, we're in flower, which is, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks earlier than last year, which was April, although last year was late. I actually did the wedge cut on the wrong side of the trunk. I did it facing away from the branch that I was cutting back to. I should have actually taken the wedge out of the same side of the trunk that the branch I'm cutting back to is coming from. And the reason for that, I now know is because this branch will be photosynthesizing and resources will be coming past the lower section of the wedge and driving the healing in that section. Instead, because I've got the wedge on the wrong side of the trunk, what's happened is we've had healing at the top and the sides of the wedge cut, but no healing at the bottom. And it's the bottom of the wedge cut that's the important part, because that's the bit that's going to remain once we complete the chop. The cut was roughly here, and the callus formation has been really good. When I initially did it, I used foil to dress the wound, and with a sample size of 1, I can't say for sure if the foil has enhanced the amount of callus that was produced, but I was under the impression that Kojo no Mai is a slow healing species, so I was just happy to get that much callus formation in a single growing season. The wound is now dressed with cut paste, and that's because as the growing season drew on, the amount of callus that formed pushed the foil off of the wound, didn't form a good seal anymore. I tried to reapply some new foil, but because of the shape of the wound it was impossible to get it in there securely. With this species being vulnerable to fungal issues, I decided to use cut paste that would make a better seal. I think moving forward I'll definitely be using this technique again, but I'll do it on the right side. Obviously there's a lot of work to be done in the branch structure, but we'll let the tree bounce back from this operation first, and then we'll come back later. This one's going to go back into the greenhouse now. Hopefully it's going to continue to thrive and develop nicely. So until next time, take care and thanks for watching.